It is day 12 of my having COVID and day, I don't even know, of the corporate media deciding that the fact that the oldest person to run for the presidency in American history isn't a story anymore. Who knew? Let's dive in. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Nerd Avengers. It's a little weird to be here. It's a weird not to have been here. So I'm happy that I'm able to sit upright. So that's progress. Waj, Brian, Danielle, it's good to see you guys. Thank you for filling in while I was incapacitated. Not that I'm not now, but again, sitting. Woo! It's very exciting. So there's literally everything we could talk about today would be disqualifying. It would end any campaign in American history except one. And I'm kind of sick of talking about that, even though we can't. So what I'd like to do is keep talking about these things. We need to keep talking about what happened at Arlington National Cemetery. We need to keep talking about the fact that Donald Trump is really fucking old and he's in massive cognitive decline. He has serious untreated psychiatric disorders back decades, and he's mentally, psychologically, emotionally, and ethically unfit to hold the office he seeks. I want to keep talking. Huh?
You're too kind.
Not to put too fine a point on it. I am not at all. I'm pulling punches just because I'm trying to sum this up. But he's also evil. I mean, there's that, and he's a traitor. I think we need to keep talking about the way he's co-opting religion in the most cynical way. We need to keep talking about the way he is very openly threatening to interfere with the upcoming election, how he's siding with our enemies, and the list goes on and on and on. So, Waj, let's start with Arlington, which shockingly is still a story. So, I mean, I guess we should be grateful that finally, something seems to be sticking. So what do you make of how this story is developing and what needs to happen in order to make it stick? Because one thing I find about just to sum up, the Trump campaign staged or created a fake event essentially to commemorate the anniversary of the deaths of 13 American soldiers in Afghanistan. And then the fake event was created to make the Harris campaign look bad for not going to this thing that wasn't actually anything. Donald has never done this before. So somebody in his campaign just came up with this idea. They go to do basically a campaign video in section 60 of Arlington Cemetery. That is not allowed. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson interfered in order to get them permission to go to Arlington, but that did not give them permission to hold a campaign event there because, again, not just illegal, but also vile. That's hallowed ground, and it's despicable to use soldiers as props, as Donald has done for years now. His team, probably somebody like Corey Lewandowski, who has no trouble roughing up women, got into an altercation with an employee at the cemetery whose job it is to make sure that that ground is held sacred. And she was brushed aside, pushed aside, literally and figuratively. They did whatever they wanted to do, using the Gold Star families who had invited them as their excuse. By the way, even if those families wanted them there, they don't get to override Arlington policy and federal law.
Yep.
And now we're told that they had video showing, but that what their version of events is correct. We've never seen that video. And Donald's blaming the families for releasing the video, of course, because he's despicable and a coward. And it's the reason I think it's resonating, besides the fact that it's just another example of his contempt for the military, which, by the way, he's been getting away with for years since he attacked John McCain and the cons in the 2016 election. But it's also the lying and the threatening of federal employees, which is just another window into what's going to happen to civil servants in a second Trump administration. So it kind of brings together a lot of his most egregious qualities, and it is, again, a preview of things to come.
Stochastic terrorism, the word that Dahlia and I have said on this show for 2 years, I know it annoys people, is when there's allegedly random acts of violence, but when you peer into it, it's not random at all. It's when usually public figures and right-wing media focus an attack on an individual or a group, and then that results in, wait for it, violence. I think the reason why this particular case is so egregious and has stuck is, it's like the neighborhood bully who bullies all the marginalized kids, and like the rest of the people say, he bullied the short kid, he bullied the goofy kid, he bullied the disabled kid, he bullied the black kid. It's not going to happen to me. And then it happens to them and they get really pissed. This is what we're witnessing with Donald Trump and bullying the veterans and military. Let's not forget that Donald Trump, the reason why he went to Arlington is to do a photo op to improve his poll numbers with our veteran community. Why did he piss off the veteran community? Well, in addition to calling them suckers and losers, those who were captured and killed, in addition to mocking those who are amputees and saying that he did not want to be photographed with an amputee, in addition to saying that his personal Vietnam was avoiding STDs, that's an exact quote, folks, can't even make that up, he decided 2 weeks ago to double down in the way Donald does and denigrate the Congressional Medal of Honor, which is one of the highest awards, recognitions given to veterans, and to upplay the Congressional Medal of Freedom, which he bestowed on Miriam Adelson. Miriam Adelson is not a veteran. Miriam Adelson is the widow of Sheldon Adelson, a right-wing hardcore pro-Israel billionaire. And Miriam Adelson promised Donald, I think, $100 million for his campaign if he promises to annex the entire West Bank if he becomes president, quid pro quo. So he then, just completely tone deaf, being Donald, just doesn't read the room, Mary. And everyone's like, even people are like, even conservatives are like, hey, don't denigrate the Congressional Medal of Honor. He's like, I will. Kind of elevates the Congressional Medal of Freedom. So then they do this photo op, probably Corey Lewandowski. Aha, we'll win them over.
Just one quick thing, Waj, because, the Congressional Medal of, I mixed them up, sorry. The Presidential Medal of, one goes to civilians, one goes to the military.
Freedom goes to civilians.
I should know the difference. The one that goes to civilians is the highest civilian order. It's nothing to sneeze at until Donald started handing them out to cronies, not just Mary Adelson. Rush Limbaugh, who's done as much to destroy American democracy as anybody, up to and including Rupert Murdoch. He gave it to Jim Jordan, who's a freaking traitor to this country. He gave it to like sports figures who were just slimy assholes. I mean, he denigrated that medal in a way that was kind of despicable. So, comparing them is a ridiculous thing to do under the best of circumstances, but especially given the class of recipients in his administration, it just made it that many times worse.
No, and so it's the denigration of it at the expense of veterans, right?
Yeah.
And then so he does this at Arlington, and Brian and I talked about it when you still had COVID. I'm sorry, my family went through it. I hope you heal. But it's like 20 minutes away, right? And you go there, and Daniel and I, all of us were talking about this. It's a hallowed ground. You don't need to. You don't even need to know that it houses our veterans. If you're just an adult or a respectful human being, you go to a cemetery and you're like, people are visiting their relatives. There's a somberness. You just know. The last thing you do is go like that. And so the fact that he did this, and the fact that he pushed aside this female, someone from his team did, and the U.S. military folks came in and took the side of the woman and said she was right. And then they said, no, you're wrong. We're going to double down again because this is the Roger Stone Cohen playbook. Never apologize, never retreat. Well, now they put themselves into a hole because they said there's video proof that backs up our story. Well, finally, the press, and I think it's because it's veterans. I think it's because this specific class of people, military, right? Black people, journalists. You just literally praised you literally just praised another big story, Mary. If I
Yeah,
may,
we're gonna get to that one.
yeah, he praised a guy who tried to almost beat up of the press, but I think in this particular case, they painted themselves in the corner, said we have video, and so now there's thank God a few journalists every single day. I see at least one journalist saying, "So where's the video, Donald?"
Mhm.
And I believe, Mary, it's one of those fights that the bully picks that I think he can't win. And I think it bubbles up, right? It bubbles up. The women, the press, Black people, poll workers. It's all bubbling up, and the threat of violence. And then I'm sure we're going to talk about this batshit interview with Mark Levin, where he admits to doing a crime. He literally confesses. It all happens in 1 week, Mary. It intersects, and what we see is what we've been talking about on your show for 5 years now: a violent authoritarian figure who does not care about the rule of law, who does not care about our veterans, who cannot understand the concept of sacrifice, and only cares about himself, coming together at a time where he's the most vulnerable, and Kamala Harris and Tim Walz have nothing but momentum. And finally, I think people see the weakness and people say, we can attack.
So, I mean, Brian, do you think that's it? That the corporate media is suddenly coming to the realization that maybe their guy's not going to pull this one off. So let's do our jobs for a change. Because I can, off the top of my head, I can think of 10 instances, like immediately, of Donald denigrating the military, again, starting in 2016 with Senator John McCain and the Khans, who are Gold Star parents.
Yeah, well, first of all, he's never been my guy.
Well, you know what I'm saying.
No,
I said
know.
corporate media, by the way. That was the tell.
Just want people to understand he's never been my guy. And there's a lot of us in the corporate media who he's never been our guy. But to your point, and it's
I meant
point.
the overarching corporate media.
What he did was issue what I call the Gary Hart challenge. People listened to Gary Hart for a long time, and there were all kinds of rumors. But Gary Hart said, hey, I got nothing to hide. Follow me. We did. That's an easy thing to do. This was so he was caught.
That's a stupid thing to say.
Yeah, stupid. So this is the Gary Hart challenge, Trump style. I got video. Well, the dumbest reporter in the world can go, wow, I love video. That goes great in my story. Where's the video? And he doesn't have the video. So that's the problem. He gave the Gary Hart challenge, and we called him on his bluff. But to your what Waj was speaking about earlier, the thing you have to remember, the thing that hurts me the most about this is the sense of history that's being denied, and how it was Montgomery. I want to get it right. Montgomery Meigs, who was the quartermaster general during the Civil War, who turned that property, which was Robert E. Lee's. He suggested that they bury the Union soldiers there in order to embarrass. The first thing that it was for was to honor the dead, as noticed in, as referred to in the Gettysburg Address by Abraham Lincoln. In many ways, we cannot hollow this ground. He wanted to hollow that ground. That was hollowed ground for those who suffered, died for the Union, for the United States of America. And he was buried there himself behind the house. He was the one who pushed it to become what it is. Section 60 was part of his design for the Arlington National Cemetery. And one of his quotes was, "This is hallowed ground to give our highest honor to those who gave their all." Now, that was from the very damn beginning of what this was, and to have it perverted by this guy, Waj is absolutely right. One of the reasons why it's sticking in the craw of many Americans is simply for the fact there are so many vets who have had enough of Donnie Darko, and they're pissed and have been for a while. And Mary, you look, there isn't anything this man has done, and I've been there as he's denigrated. I've sat there in the East Room. I sat there in the Rose Garden. I sat there on the South Lawn, stood there and questioned him, as many of us had, and none of it stuck before. And this is sticking for the very simple reason that he gave the Gary Hart challenge. I've got the video, produce it. We don't got it. And so what you're seeing now is the cascading effect of all the BS for the last 8 years from Donald Trump about veterans. They finally got something. Yeah, 9. They actually, yeah, you're right. And we actually have something to call him on it. And it's concrete. And it's what the press loves more than anything. Video. That's why they want the video.
For those youngs out there, Gary Hart, I believe, I kind of forget the details, but he was a Democratic candidate.
The lead, leading candidate for the presidency, I think, in '84.
Way back before many of you were even an idea.
I covered that campaign.
Yeah, so he, there were rumors about his personal life, I guess, and he said, just follow me if you think there's something going on. And like an idiot, he gets seen on a boat with a woman, not his wife.
Monkey Business. That was
a boat called Monkey Business with a woman, not his wife, sitting on his lap. Oh, the horror! Like that was enough. In those not innocent times, but like that was enough. Just like a mini tank was enough. But Danielle, I'm a little skeptical that it's because he said there's a video that they haven't produced. Like that, just like he's been lying through his teeth forever. Like, why is that really the difference here?
That he has a fake video that he's not going to offer the American people, and that the press is not going to press him on whether or not we can see access to that video. I mean, Donald Trump is a lot of things, but he's also a master manipulator of the press, right? And what we see is that he can leave these Hansel and Gretel-like breadcrumbs that go over a cliff, but they will absolutely willingly follow it, and then he'll try and sell them a parachute on the way down. The reality here is that he says these things because if you put a little sprinkle of what seemingly seems like a defense, like I have video, then it gives some credence to what it is that he's done. Or is there a both sides here? Is this woman and the U.S. Army who has backed her up, are they wrong? Is there really are two sides to every story? Is the version of Donald Trump's life that he just perpetuates? Like, are you going to believe them or are you going to believe me? And I think that this, to Waj's earlier point, I think that this story has continued to be in the press because it is so absolutely egregious. There are lots of groups that, legacy mainstream media shrugs their shoulders at and just doesn't give a fuck about, because those that sit in the C-suites don't resemble the majority of Americans. They don't care if you denigrate Black people. They don't care if you denigrate people of color or queer people, because it is still very much a white straight man's world. And so, but when you look at still the kind of reverence that we have for our military, and you say that this man goes there and gives a thumbs up, and to Waj's point, and I said this in a multitude of videos, you don't need directions on how to act in a fucking cemetery. Anybody with any moral character fiber knows how you act in a cemetery, right? It is a place that is solemn. It is a place for reflection. It is a place to honor those that have passed. It is a place that is not and should never be the backdrop of a campaign rally, right? It is so absurd to even think that there is some form or place where Republicans say, oh, well, Donald Trump didn't know, or, oh, it's not that big of a deal, when they're the ones that have said time and time again, we're for the military. No, you're for aggression and toxic masculinity, and those two things don't need to be the same. And so that's why I think that you have this, both sides commotion. Oh, well, we have video. Oh, well, let's see your video versus the facts that we know are actually present.
Well, okay. So, I don't think it's just because it's the military, because he's been denigrating the military, including his quote unquote generals. Oh, for God's sakes. I swear I disabled that thing. But yeah, that's how I'm feeling.
That was amazing, by the way.
I'm feeling like, let's see what happens now. Anyway, he's been doing this in different ways for a very long time. Like since my dad actually was in ROTC and then became a second lieutenant in the National Guard. Like he was reviled, he was mocked in my family for being stupid enough to think that was a good use of his time, So this goes way, way back. I think it has to be the setting as well. To your point, Danielle, it's that it happened at the most hallowed ground in this country, especially given Arlington's history, as Brian pointed out. Now the question is, what are we going to do about it? I'm wondering, why isn't it's lovely that the Army, gave a statement supporting the employee, who is, by the way, afraid to press charges because she'll get backlash from Donald's minions. Well, why isn't the Army pressing charges? Why aren't the Democrats getting hearings now, like yesterday? Because this does seem like an opportunity that can't be passed up. Right, Danielle? I mean, do something.
I want to say that in many ways, right, we are living inside of an authoritarian regime, right? Whether or not Donald Trump is president actually doesn't matter to the effects that it has had on our psychology in this country, that there has been installed a significant amount of fear that if you speak out against this man, if you speak out against this party, that not only can it be the end of your career, it can be the end of safety as you know it. Right. Yep. It's not just about, oh, well, maybe I'll get off of social media for a couple of weeks because I don't want to be bullied. It's like, no, maybe my home will be doxxed, and maybe those gun-toting, police that barge in, maybe they're trigger happy that day, and I look like I moved a little too far to my left or my right, and then I'm dead. These are really real consequences of what it means to go up against Donald Trump. And I think that the fact is, I wish that it wasn't beholden to the woman who was assaulted, because let us use that language too, because language matters. This woman was assaulted. She was pushed. She was grabbed. She was physically removed from the space that she put her body in by Donald Trump's goons. But it is always beholden on these people, the victims, right, to come forward and be able to take on more victimization, and then possibly never even get a judgment that's in their favor. So I wish that the U.S. Army would say, on behalf of, right, on behalf of all Arlington Cemetery staff, not necessarily this particular person, we are going to file charges because we have rules and federal regulations in place for a reason. But I think the fact that we don't see these steps taken forward, you just look at, Shay Moss and Miss Ruby in Georgia, the election workers in Georgia who had their lives ruined, right? You look at, where is Dr. Blasey Ford, who spoke out against Brett Kavanaugh? She had to move, right? Like, so we need to follow the stories of those people that have had the courage to do this and what has happened to them since. And it's not fair for us to say, why don't these people take on this, this charge, when in fact, not that you said it, Mary, but I'm saying, like, our feeling is like, well, these people should press charges. And it's like, how many charges did Donald Trump have against him right now? And how many lives have been ruined? How many judges, and their families' lives have been upended? How many people like Mitt Romney, who don't have the money to pay for security for their families, right, are in the process of figuring out, like, how they manage to stay safe?
And by the way, private security, round-the-clock security, is about $5,000 a day, not a month, a day. So,
a day. So that's what, $20,000
that's 4
a
people
month?
working, to 2 12-hour shifts. I mean, or 2 people, whatever. It's a lot of money. And who can afford that? Which is why, Waj, the fact that the Army is like, it's another example of our institutions failing us. What, they don't want to go up against the guy that was in the Oval Office and is running for office again. I'm so sick of that as an excuse, because Donald Trump did nothing but dishonor the office of the presidency. He has no right to the benefits and protections that whatever that word is, because he just doesn't deserve it. He's done so much damage to this country and to the office of the presidency, and to afford him any respect because of that is just so backward. Like, I feel that if you are privileged enough to have a position of power in this country, you owe us more, not less. And and then we have the press continuing to fail us at every turn. This is a clip from a rally that Donald held recently, and one of the rally goers decided to take Donald at his word. Let's check this out.
Actually, in 2016 we did great, but 2020 we did much better generally. Since Kamala and the media don't want to talk about her radical record, we will. Beautiful.
Beautiful.
That's beautiful. That's all right. That's okay. No, he's on our side. We get a little itchy, David, don't we? No, he's on our side. You know what he's showing? At Butler, an amazing thing happened. You had 2 American flags very far apart, held up, I think, by different cranes. They were very big flags, beautiful flags that they were waving. And as that horrible event was taking place, the wind blew the flags together and they formed a perfect angel. I don't know if we have it, but it was a perfect angel was formed.
Hating somebody this much is so exhausting and debilitating. I mean, he's such scum. Basically, it wasn't clear, but the guy in the crowd jumped a fence and was trying to attack the media reporters there physically. And Donald's response is, that's a beautiful thing, because that assaulter of other human beings is on our side. So, Waj, what's the implication? And why is it that the corporate media still, and I mean, this is just 2016 redux. This is nothing new. And they're still like, yeah, that's cool. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. He calls us the enemy of the people. We will let everything slide, including his advanced age and mental incapacities.
I mean, I don't know about all of you, but when I feel itchy, I just take a back scratcher and scratch my itch. I don't feel compelled to violently attack or threaten.
Or hit a heavy bag or something.
Yeah. Just do a push-up. I don't know. Go for a walk. It's one of those situations where he looked at it. He saw what was happening. He said it was beautiful. He said he's on our side twice. So if he's on my side, then that's right. If you are committing violence for me, great. If you're committing violence against me, you're the enemy. If you are breaking laws for me, great. If you are upholding the law to keep me from breaking the law, you're the enemy, right? If you are doing your duty to protect Arlington Cemetery and keeping me away, bad. I have the right to push you aside. I can do anything I want. Civility for me, cruelty for you. That's the MAGA way. And with the press in particular, Mary, I feel like, I'm sorry I have to say this, but let's just put on our thinking caps and let's imagine, children. If Kamala Harris had a Pennsylvania rally, which she has had, and there was an unhinged Democratic supporter who threw down his Harris Waltz poster and started attacking Fox News. Same thing happened. And Kamala Harris said, "That's beautiful. That's beautiful. He's on our side. Angels," and it said something about angels forming. What would happen, people? It will be on the front page of every U.S. newspaper, on every U.S. magazine. It would lead every single cable news show. We have to bring up this clip from just a couple of days ago, Mary, because it didn't even last one night. It didn't even last one night. It was a clip that because we're nerds and we follow this, we have to bring it up. And so I sit there and I think I've done a dark joke that if this is how the corporate press thinks, right? You know, we all have experience with it. They really believe, Mary, that they're in a way indispensable, that Donald needs them, that the infrastructure, the incestuous media political landscape needs them, and that if Donald wins, they will have, wait for it, scoops and access. And what they don't realize is that they're not indispensable. They don't realize that the base calls them the enemy of the people. What they don't realize after 9 years is no matter how much they placate MAGA, bend the knee, give them New York Times columns, they still hate them. Case in point, that video clip, right? They want to literally kill these people. And so what they think, the dark joke I have, is if Trump wins and he creates camps, which he said he will for undocumented immigrants, another huge story no one talks about. You'll get the immigrants there. You'll get Black people. Daniel and me will be there. You'll have Mike Pence. You'll have, Mary, Brian, he'll slip in there. And then you'll have journalists, the corporate media. And then all of us will be like another great old school reference. It'll be like The Great Escape. I'll be Steve McQueen. And we'll try to come up with an escape. And then the corporate press, by the way, will have their hands sticking out of the bars with the microphones asking the guards.
That's what the corporate media will be like, "Hey, look at this awesome access we got."
And the guards will be like, "Can we have a scoop?" And the guard will be like, "We're going to kill you tomorrow. I
think that's a cartoon. There's a cartoon in there somewhere.
Yeah, the guard is like, "Yeah, sure, you can have the exclusive." And people might joke, that's how they think. They're not agile enough. They can't break. And so them being beaten up, they'll turn the camera around and say, "Look at the scoop I got. I'm getting beaten up. I got the exclusive." It is a broken mindset, Mary. And I feel 9 years on, with all the egregious examples, especially the one you just showed, I think it is very safe to say, Mary, probably safe to say 3-4 years ago, the corporate media is broken. It is absolutely broken. They will not change. They're not agile. They're not ready for this. They will not meet the moment. They're not built for this fight. And they are, I will take it a step further, actively complicit in the normalization of Trump's violence and vulgarity. And we cannot rely upon them and some other institutions to do the job. Another institution, Justice Department, of all the examples that you said, if Donald Trump is openly committing a crime, what would happen if he's a U.S. citizen, Mary? If you and I confess to a crime, what would happen?
We'd be arrested.
And how come the institutions do not hold Donald to the same responsibility? And the reason is we do both sides for the Republicans. It's always affirmative action for conservatives in every single institution. And they also are hedging, and I hate saying this because it's so cynical, but the proof is in the pudding. They're hedging that he still might win.
Yeah. And I think that it may not be the most important thing, but the clearest example of how they are in the tank is that the age of a presidential candidate is no longer an issue. The guy's 78 years old. He's obviously in decline. He's no better he's louder, but he's much worse than Biden in terms of a neurologist, I believe, or a gerontologist said the difference between the two is that Biden is aging and Donald is dementing. But you don't hear about that anymore. And Brian, I want you to comment on some of what Waj was talking about, but I also want to play this clip because it's, again, another example of something so horrifying that is not getting any coverage. And that's clip 9.
Which would be the very standard countries. And we have the enemy from within. We have some very sick people from within. I think that the people that go around indicting their political opponent, especially when their political opponent didn't want to do it to them, I could have done it so easy.
Okay, first of all, Donald, you're really fucking old, and maybe it's time just to call it a day. So, Brian, what he's saying there is that anybody who does their job and tries to hold him accountable is an enemy of this country. So he's doing that l'état c'est moi thing where he is the state, he is America, and it's not him that's being attacked, it's the country being attacked, and he's just standing in the way or whatever. And again, like the woman at the cemetery was doing her job. The prosecutors and the judges and the juries are doing their jobs. They're enemies, though, because how dare they? He actually committed crimes, and what he's saying is, hey, I could have gotten people indicted too, because he would just make shit up. So why isn't that being taken seriously? I mean, what else do we need here?
This will take me to a minute to unpack, and I hope I don't offend anyone. First of all, I've been attacked as a reporter from the right and the left for most of my career, for 40 years, depending on who we piss off on any given day. We do know about these events because of media. I will say this, while I've been called many names by members of the left, I've never had my life threatened by any of them. That only comes from the far right. That is the true
Not the
danger.
far right. I'm sorry, the right.
Well, the MAGA party, the cult members that belong to Donald Trump.
The whole Republican Party at this point.
Well, that's only MAGA at this point, Mary.
Okay, but there's no far right. There's no moderate Republicans.
Yeah, and Waj was right.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think that's important because that lets them off the hook. It lets them off the hook to pretend that they're wings of the party anymore. The whole party is Donald Trump's party, and that needs to be hanged around their necks like an albatross.
I agree with you. I agree with Waj. Corporate media is broken. Guess what? The government broke it. Every president, starting with Ronald Reagan, did it. Every one of them was complicit in it. Every one of them is responsible for what we went through today. Mostly, and I'll say this in all honesty, mostly it's the Republicans. While the Democrats have been complicit, not nearly as much, they just didn't correct the wrongs once they were made by Ronald Reagan, George Bush, and George Bush Jr. They didn't. The Telecommunications Act was a disaster. All of this contributed to what we've done today. Now, there is a bit of nuance that we have to understand. And this goes to what Danielle was talking about and Waj was talking about earlier. It's a right church, wrong pew with me. Corporate media is two things. It is those people sitting in the C-suites, as Danielle pointed out, those who make the decisions. They are the ones that are complicit because they think they're going to get the exclusives. They think they're going to make the money. The guy who's sitting out in the field, the poor bastard that got his ass beaten, is a photographer. And that guy is only trying to hold on to his job. And he was there shooting. And so his access is his life. He has held over him the idea he will not have a job. He will not be able to hold on to his job. He will be unemployed if he doesn't do as the corporate masters, who have worked hand in hand with the government, have decided that he has to do. So for those guys, and I've been at these rallies and I've been threatened, and they are always one step away from wanting to beat your butt down when you're there. And they wear these shirts that say, I'd rather be for Putin than a Democrat. They assume that just because we report against them, that we're hand in hand walking with the Democrats down the aisle as if we're married. And then the Democrats think that we're hand in hand walking with the Republicans and covering Donald Trump. The fact of it is, most of the poorest saps out on the field are just trying to do their job. If you want it done right, break up the corporate media and break up the media monopolies and put diversity of opinion and diversity of representation and diversity of ownership back where it was, because it has been destroyed by simply 6 companies owning 90% of what you see, read, or hear, and they don't care about anything but damn dollars, money. Those people that get beaten, I'm telling you, some of those photographers I know that have been covering the White House or been on the trail or been, working for networks for 30, 40 years, they're not making bukus of money. They're putting their kids through school. They're the ones that are hurting. They're the ones that are suffering. And yet at the same time, they also get blamed. So there's a nuance there that I wish we spoke to. As far as not reporting more often, I'm one of those who want it to be reported more often. And there are many of us who do. The fact of the matter is the boardrooms and their cash and their board members and their shareholders only give a crap about the money. And until you change that, Raj is absolutely right. It's broken until you change it. By the way, I wrote a book about that, Free the Press. I'll plug it. That's it. Until we fix that, you've got to be. You're never going to fix this.
Daniel, there's the whole idea that Donald sells papers or he gets clicks or what have you. And okay, maybe, obviously, he's been doing that for decades. I will never understand why, but okay, he does. However, I find it unbelievable that, reporting on what he's actually doing also wouldn't get clicks. Like, seriously, diving deep on stories about his treason and his criminality and his cruelty and his, threats against this country. I think that would get interest too. So, is it only about access? Because I want to play clip 5 and then get your take on the other side.
Whoever heard you get indicted for interfering with a presidential election where you have every right to do it? You get indicted and your poll numbers go up. When people get indicted, your poll numbers go down.
Okay, so he's perpetuating the big lie. He lost the 2020 election badly by almost 8 million popular votes. And, he's basically saying that in 2024, because it was stolen from him in 2020, he has the right to do whatever he wants. And I just, is that not newsworthy? I mean, shouldn't we be preparing people for that eventuality? Because we knew that in 2020, we knew that he was going to, or some of us knew that he would do anything. We knew that he wasn't going to concede. We knew that he wasn't going to go to the inauguration. We knew he was going to drag this country down with him if he thought he was going down. So don't you think people would be interested in knowing that? Is it literally that they're just afraid of not having access anymore?
I mean, I think that it's a couple of things. And and thank you to Brian for unpacking, a lot of it as a person that has been in, legacy media for so long and has watched its demise, which is that it is about access, it's about power, and it's about money. Right at the end of the day. And, we assume that and want legacy media to still be in the place where they see their role as the fourth estate as being something that is about educating the citizenry to be able to make decisions about their day-to-day lives. But if you're doing that, right, then you are providing power to the people. And at the end of the day, those that are in the C-suites do not want the people in this country to have power, which is why they funnel and whitewash their information in a way that has them operate in their best interest, right? This is about clickbait and it is about access. And they see Donald Trump as the whale. In Vegas, when you're talking about, the bettors and you're at the blackjack tables or whatever, you want the whales, the very rich guys, to come in and spend a ton of money, right? Because then it gets other people to come in. Donald Trump is the media's whale, right? And when they attach themselves to him, like the barnacles that they are, right, they're able to benefit, right, from the stuff that goes into the water. And so for them, it is about access, it's about money, it's about clicks. It is not about education, because the most dangerous thing to people in power, to the uber wealthy, is an educated citizenry. And they are part and parcel, part of the problem when it comes to creating and designing and uplifting and amplifying systems that work in the people's disinterest, right? And that, I mean, this is why the thousands of people that are watching right now, Mary, are here, because they are divesting from legacy media, because they're coming to independent media, realizing that you're not lying to them. We're not lying to them. The only benefit that we have in the work that we do when we show up here, right, is to tell the truth. It's to give you the truth, because I mean, my mother, prime example of somebody who she is in cable news and has been, channel is on in our home 24/7, right? And then she started to realize, I don't think they're telling the truth. Danielle, like, this doesn't make sense to me. And so where can I go for the right information? And I said, come here, right? You go to my shows, you go to Mary, you go to Waj's Substack, you go to Brian's books, you go to places where people are willing to tell you the truth, even if it is at risk, right, to their financial ability, right? Because people also have to understand there is an economy to the lies, right? And mainstream corporate legacy media is not interested, right, in giving people information that is going to hurt their bottom line. So while we see it as value, we have to understand that for them, the highest value is power, right?
Economic.
Is power. Yes.
Yeah, and that's a reminder that everybody needs to subscribe to this channel, to Danielle's channel, to Jen Taub's channel, because we are building something here that is not just to get us through this very dark time we're living in, but to start chipping away at the project of making democracy better for everybody. The work doesn't end on election day either way. One way would be infinitely more frightening than the other, and make it more difficult for us to do the work that needs to be done. But the other way does give us that opportunity. So, it's not like this is only about the election. There's so much more that needs to be done. So please subscribe.
This is the independent media that I speak of, Mary. This is how it goes forward. You can't break up the media monopolies unless you have an alternative. This is the alternative. Vetted factual information is the coin of the realm, folks. That's why you tune in.
That's right. So the sooner we get to 5 million subscribers, the better, because that's a real alternative. Anyway, I want to play another clip. I think, one, because it just illustrates the brazenness. Like, this is what happens when you don't discipline the toddler, and let the toddler grow up to be a friggin' monster, who does nothing but push the envelope, get away with it, push the envelope more. So next thing you know, we've got enemies in concentration camps. This is clip 6 about how poorly Kamala Harris has treated poor Mike Pence.
Normally wouldn't agree to. Now they have
Wake up.
Kamala, who they say has many deficiencies, but she's a nasty person. The way she treated Mike Pence was horrible. The way she treats people is horrible. But the way she treated Justice Kavanaugh during that hearing, in the history of Congress, nobody's been treated that way.
Oh, in the history of the world, none of this has ever happened before. It's the worst thing ever. Waj, I'm so heartily sick of him. One, he needs to get out of his stupor. I don't know, somebody should have slapped him and woken him up a little bit. But yeah, just the breathtaking cluelessness. It's not even clueless, brazenness, I guess. First of all, Kamala Harris, with the exception of the debate, never met Mike Pence on neutral territory. For forget what I was going to say. Let's just focus on the debate and Kavanaugh. She was doing her job. Like, it was a debate. Like, unless she crossed the stage and like punched him in the face, like the fly treated Mike Pence worse than Kamala Harris did during that debate, first of all. Secondly, somebody did something to Mike Pence on January 6th. What was it, Waj, and who did it?
Yeah, so Donald incited a violent insurrection of his enraged cult to attack the U.S. Capitol to try to stop the transfer of power and stop the certification of an election in which he lost. The person whose job was to certify it was Mike Pence. And Mike Pence, his vice president, who was a willing reek for 4 years up until that moment, took advice from Dan Quayle and Judge Luttig, a conservative judge who's now openly voting for Kamala Harris for the sake of the country, and said, okay, fine, I'll do my job and certify the election. And that was enough for Donald to throw Mike Pence, his willing reek, to the wolves, where his base came to kill and assassinate in part both Mike Pence and Nancy Pelosi. And according to what we know, the evidence is very strong to suggest that Donald Trump was perfectly okay with it. He said, yep, go get him. And so here the man who incited a violent cult to potentially kill his own vice president because his vice president decided to put country before Donald, he's now saying, Kamala was so mean to him. And speaking about being so mean to anyone in Congress, I just want to remind people, because as I was listening to that clip, it just popped into my head, because this is the reality we're in. Donald mocked and ridiculed Ted Cruz's dad, spread a false conspiracy that his dad was, not making this up, folks, involved in the JFK assassination. He mocked Ted Cruz's wife as being hideous and mocked Ted Cruz. And now Ted Cruz says, thank you, may I have another? And the fact that we just normalize it, the fact that because Mark's not stupid. And he just sat there, he goes, okay, let's just, I know this clip is going to go bad. Let me just quickly pivot. It's one of those things that no outrage, Mary, already forgotten, not mainstream news. Instead, we're talking about, this is what we're talking about. Tim Walz said that he's a coach. He's not. He's an assistant coach. This is where we're at, folks.
Well, I mean, for Democrat, that is disqualifying, because we have that thing called a double standard. But yeah, just to be clear, Donald Trump tried to have Mike Pence hanged. And this was something that was going on for months ahead of January 6th. It's not like it was only that morning that Donald was setting Mike Pence up. It was weeks ahead of time to put pressure on Pence not to do his job. And by the way, let's be very clear. Mike Pence is not a hero. He just did his job for a change. So this is a response to Donald's comments. This is clip 7. It's worth the wait. I promise.
It will be a sad day for our country. And Mike Pence, I hope you're going to stand up for the good of our Constitution and for the good of our country. And if you're not, I'm going to be very disappointed in you. I will tell you right now.
I'm telling you what, I'm hearing the Pence. I'm hearing the Pence just caved.
No.
Is that true?
I didn't.
I'm hearing reports that Pence caved.
No
I'm
way.
telling you, if Pence caved, we're going to drag through the streets. You politicians are going to get drugged through the streets.
Yes.
I guess the hope is that there's such a show of force here that Pence will decide to do the right thing, according to Trump.
Bring it out! Bring it out! Bring out Pence! Bring him out! Bring out Pence! Bring him out! Bring out Pence!
Mary, the people who started that chant, by the way, were the Proud Boys. I was there when they did it. I was there when they put up the noose. Those people were inspired by, driven there by Donald Trump. I was standing there when he made the speech. There's no doubt. Anybody who wants to say, "Oh, that's BS," no, I was there. That was Donald Trump. Donald Trump did that. Don't ever think otherwise, because I'm telling you, that's total freaking BS. That was all Donald Trump's doing. Sorry, had to get that in.
No, it's absolutely right. And because I'm a little out of practice, my time management skills are a little bit off. So we are running out of time. But Danielle, one of the things about that clip that never ceases to infuriate me is just the audacity of those people. Like, how dare they? How dare they think that they have more rights than the rest of us, that they don't have to play by the rules? I mean, it makes me sick. And we need to be reminded every single day that those are the people Donald Trump is going to pardon if he gets back into office to unleash upon us again, if we make a step out of line again.
You know what's wild is that that's the first time I've seen that clip. And I watch the news all the time, right? But I have not seen that clip of them saying that they're going to drag Mike Pence through the streets. That is not a clip that is readily resonant and has been played over and over again on corporatized mainstream media. It isn't, right? And you would think that, instead of, I don't know, the other day, Politico saying that the vice president of the United States evades question on identity, that we would be talking about the fact that Donald Trump evades responsibility for inciting a fucking insurrection that had police officers killed and brutalized. But we don't continue to have that narrative because it's up for debate. Because apparently for some people, what we just saw was a tourist march that was happening as opposed to a violent white supremacist mob that was organized by the president of the United States. And so I think that it is incumbent on all of us to continue with 62 days to go until the election to remind people just how violent Donald Trump and his sycophants and his followers are. And that he continues to say even now, planting the seeds, sowing the seeds again like he did in 2020. If I'm not elected, things are going to be wild. Things are going to be dangerous, and folks need to watch out. And I say consistently, take Donald Trump and his followers at their word.
Yeah. And let's also not forget that one of the biggest reasons, not the only reason, but one of the biggest reasons this was allowed, that revisionist history was allowed to, I don't know, I can't speak, to be engaged in. How's that for grammatical? Is because of the wholesale abdication of the Republican Party. They're cowards. They're power-hungry fascists. And if it weren't for them, and then, of course, the complicity of corporate media, we'd be having a very different conversation. But unfortunately, that's where we are. So, Brian, I'm sorry, we ran out of time. You get extra time next time. I apologize. You too, Danielle. But again, little rusty. But in other news, I did want to remind everybody that a week from today, my new book is being published. This is the cover. It's by me. It's called "Who Could Ever Love You?" And that's me. I think I was about 8 in that picture.
Well, we love you, Mary.
Thank you so much. It's apparently a chore to have, but anyway, it's a memoir, and it's sort of the book I would have liked to write a few years ago, but which should basically, the giveaway here is it's not really about Donald. He figures in it because sadly for my dad, Donald was his brother. But we can take the picture away. So anyway, it's available for pre-order. The Kindle audio and hardcover are available for pre-order now. I read the book in the audio version. I narrate. And I'm really proud to have this book out in the world. So hopefully people pick it up, and if they do, I hope you like it. That might be the wrong word. I hope you find it enlightening is maybe a better way of putting it. So it means a lot to me to have that it exists and that it's coming out in a week. Also a reminder, I'm doing my very first book event tonight, which is going to be fascinating. Thankfully, it's virtual. I'm going to have to take a belt or something and tie myself to the chair so I can stay upright for it. but that's at the Commonwealth Club. So we'll put the link in the show notes, but if you just Google my name and Commonwealth Club, it'll pop up. It's tonight at 3 p.m. 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. So we'd love to have you there. It's a moderated conversation about my new book, and it's the very first one. So I'm actually a little nervous because I've never talked about the book before in any substantive way publicly. So that'll be fascinating. It'll be good practice. And there's some more events coming up that I'll share with you as the dates get closer. So thank you for allowing the shameless promotion. Not that you had a choice in the matter, but I appreciate your indulgence. And also, as a reminder, the Nerds here every Tuesdays and Thursdays at 12 p.m. Eastern, barring any relapse, which is a thing that can happen with COVID. But I think I'm 12 days in, so hopefully it'll just keep getting better from here. I'm back, and also be doing other kinds of videos and stuff. And again, don't forget that Danielle and Jen have YouTube channels, and Brian's Reverse Shot, and we're working on a whole bunch of other stuff in advance of the election. Also, we'll be live streaming the debate on next Tuesday, same day my book's coming out. It's going to be a very busy day. We'll be pre-gaming and providing post-game analysis. I think that this debate, assuming Donald shows up, is going to be quite something. I'm really actually looking forward to it. Again, assuming he shows. Either way, and this is the fun part. I mean, it's less fun for us if he doesn't show up, but whether he shows or not, it's going to be a disaster for him. It's much more of a disaster if he does show up, but don't tell him I said that, because we want him to show up. And he's very stupid. So, he always thinks that he's the smartest person in every room and he can manipulate things, but pretty sure Prosecutor Kamala Harris is not going to let that slide. Anyway.
Smile.
Yeah.
Before prosecutors just smile. She's got something on him. And he's not the smartest person in the room, even if he's the only person in the room.
No, exactly. It's hard to be the smartest person in the room when you have the brain power of an amoeba. No offense to amoebas. They actually serve a purpose. Okay, so be there. Will be wild, no doubt. So thank you, everybody, for listening. If you haven't already, please subscribe. It means so much to us to have your support. Danielle, Brian, Waj, thanks all of you again for holding down the fort last week and for being with me today. We will see you all Thursday. In the meantime, please stay safe and be kind.